Hare Krishna. So we are starting the study of the beautiful song of Sri Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita stands out amongst all scriptures. One, because it is the essence of all other Upanishads. And secondly, because it is spoken by Lord Himself. So that gives Bhagavad Gita its unique supreme position. So we'll start by studying the setting of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is not in isolation, it comes as an episode in the bigger itihas of Mahabharat. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada also talks about his intention to write a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, that we will see in the preface. So Bhagavad Gita appears originally within the Mahabharata. Yeah, Mahabharata is the history of the ancient world of Bharat. And what does Mahabharata comprise of? It lists events leading up to the current age of Kali Yuga. What happened in the run up to Kali Yuga? And it was spoken by, it occurred around 5,000 years back. So it is one of the greatest philosophical and religious discourses known to man, which took place just before the onset of a great fratricidal war. Means there were two factions of the same family fighting over what? Two brothers fighting over a piece of land. This is, the most common pattern that we see. So what is a situation of a great calamity was turned into a situation of great opportunity by Sri Krishna. Otherwise, war is a great calamity. But Sri Krishna, making Arjuna an instrument, he turned that into the greatest opportunity to share this divine message with the whole world for all time to come. Okay, so on one side, there were these 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, Kauravas, and on the other side were the five sons of King Pandu, who were known as Pandavas. So they were cousins, in fact. Yeah. So this is happening over the throne. Who has a right? Who has a claim to the throne? So this is basically, we can look at this war at three levels: terrestrial, celestial, and transcendental. At a terrestrial level, it is a war between cousins over a throne, over a kingdom. That's the most mundane level at which you can view Mahabharata as. But at one level above, at a celestial level, it is an ongoing war between good and evil, between the believers and the non-believers, between the theists and the atheists, between the devatas and the danavas. So that repeats itself in every cycle because there are people of two mentalities, and that is going to lead to a conflict. So at a celestial level, this is not about family or kingdom. It is about a war between two psychologies, divine and demoniac, Daivi, Asuri. That is what Mahabharata is about. And even above this, the layer above this is a transcendental layer. Okay, there are many instances where Devas and Danavas clash, but this is special because Sri Krishna is personally taking part. That makes it transcendental because of the presence of the Lord. So this is Mahabharata at three different levels. So we are approaching it from the transcendental level. A lot of people who write about Mahabharata just take it at a terrestrial level or maybe at a cosmological celestial level. So that is never a complete understanding of the Mahabharata. So evil versus good, that's the fight all about. And the size is not important. You already know the outcome. So even though Pandavas were fewer in number, they prevailed. That's the nature of dharma. Satyameva Jayate. It might be difficult, it might test you, but the assurance is the nature of the world is at the end, truth will prevail. Those who are mischievous can have their way for a while, but only till everything that they are, building by mischievous means, all of that collapses in front of the truth. So the story goes back to the two brothers, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. They come in the lineage of King Bharata. They are called the Kuru dynasty. From the word Kuru comes the word Kauravas. So all are Kauravas. In fact, even Pandavas are Kauravas because they all come from the dynasty of King Kuru. But to differentiate the five brothers from the rest, they are called Pandavas. And the rest, others are called Kauravas. So Dhritarashtra was elder, so he should have got the throne. But he was blind. And therefore, the throne went to the next younger brother, Pandu. And this is also a scheme of the divine, just to make things lead up to this war. So everything is arranged, for Lord to exercise his will. And unfortunately, to complicate matters, Pandu, who was the appointed king because his elder brother was blind and therefore he could not rule. So Pandu unfortunately also passed away at a very young age, leaving behind very young sons. And these young sons were given under the care of Dhritarashtra. Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjun, Nakul, and Sahadev. So for the time being, Dhritarashtra was made the king. Only till the time these sons of Pandu grew up and they could rule. They were suitable or fit for ruling. So, in that sense, you see, all the the whole generation of Kauravas, they are growing up together. They are in the same household, they are undergoing the same military training from Dronacharya, and they are being counseled by Bhishma Pitamaha. So they all receive the same upbringing and the same training. Still, because Vritti always shows up sooner or later. So Dhritarashtra was harboring Duryodhana, who had hate and envy towards the Pandavas. Yeah. And because Dhritarashtra, as we will see later, Prabhupada says he was not just physically blind, he was also spiritually blind. He could not understand that his son is on the wrong path. So he wanted his sons to get the throne. He did not want the sons of Pandu to inherit the kingdom. So Dhritarashtra literally means one who grabs land. So the entire Mahabharat starts because of the strong attachment of Dhritarashtra towards the throne and the land. I will not give it up, not at the price of morality, not at the price of family. I I will hold on to power at any cost. So this mindset is what is going to build up into the pot of war. And because he was, temporarily, he was the interim king. But in that duration, he got to taste power. And as they say, power corrupts. So he didn't want to give up. Who wants to give up power once they have it? Have you seen any politician who is like voluntarily saying, I'm very honored to now voluntarily retire 5 years before my term or 2 years before my term ends? I mean, most have to literally be dragged down. So, this is the difference between attachment and affection. Attachment makes you blind to outcomes. So Dhritarashtra was attached to Duryodhana in the sense he was so locked into Duryodhana emotionally that he could not see everything wrong that Duryodhana was doing. So affection is good, but when it is driven by self-interest, it takes the ugly form of attachment. It looks from the outside that you're caring for somebody or you're protecting someone, but hidden within is your own self-interest or your attachment or your agenda. So Duryodhan, from the beginning, even from a very young age, he was plotting to kill the Pandavas. So basically, anyone who comes between me and my attachments, they have to leave. That is the idea of a asura. Ishwaroham aham bhogi. And my enemies, I'll slay all my enemies. And this is a psychology. This is not just about Duryodhana or about kings. This is about everyone, even today. Anyone who comes between me and my attachments, me and my pursuit of power, I will eliminate them. Now, how you eliminate them then depends on how much power you have. If you have resources, you will employ them. If you don't have resources, you will do manipulation one way or another. So, we know in Mahabharat, he tried to offer a poisonous cake to them, to Bhima and others. He tried to set their house on fire. So they were like outright attempts to murder, bluntly. There was no, it's not a gray area. There was a direct attempt to murder. Not once, but again and again. It was only because of the protection of Vidura, who was, like their godfather, and because of Lord Krishna. And we will study in Srimad Bhagavatam in the prayers of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev is telling Yudhishthir Maharaj, Aho kashtam aho anyayam yad yuyam dharmanandana. Jivitam naratum klishtam vipra dharma achutashraya. That, oh, Yudhishthir Maharaj, you and your mother have undergone so much tribulation, so much reversals. In fact, you are not supposed to be alive, but you are still alive. Why? Because you were protected by Vipra Dharma Achut Ashraya. You served the Brahmanas, devotees, you served Dharma, and you served Achyuta or Krishna. Therefore, even though you should have died, you are still alive. So, what really protects us is Vipra Dharma Achyuta. So, because, Vidura, the godfather, and Sri Krishna, God himself, they were protecting them at all times. Therefore, they were saved from the devious attempts of Duryodhana to eliminate them completely. And now Sri Krishna, he, in one sense, he's a cousin of the Pandavas because their mother is Kunti Maharani. Kunti Maharani's brother is Vasudev, and Vasudev's son is Krishna, Vasudev. So through that relation, he is a nephew to Kunti Devi, and therefore he's a cousin to the Pandavas. So externally, he was a relative, but factually, he was God himself who had appeared, who had descended on earth to uphold dharma. We will study in the fourth chapter, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanar. So he was God incarnate to protect dharma. So both as their relative and as the eternal upholder of dharma, Sri Krishna favored the Pandavas. So, we should never be bothered. Is Krishna practicing favoritism? Because, people write books on Mahabharata and they have different takes. Sometimes they say Karna was the protagonist or Duryodhana was always right. Krishna marginalized him. Krishna manipulated him. That's not the point. Krishna doesn't favor anyone specifically. He favors dharma. And anyone who aligns with dharma is going to be favored. That's a principle. That's not a bias. The day you understand this, that day you'll have clarity. So you don't need to, take different sides. Are you on the side of dharma? If yes, Krishna will favor you. So Pandavas had their protection, but you know, using the deceit, using the irreligious practice of gambling, which Yudhishthir Maharaj should have never agreed to in the first place. So Duryodhana challenged the Pandavas because he was seeing that there was no way that he could defeat them. So then let's do it illegally. Let's do this in a adharmic way because Dyuta or gambling is one of the places of irreligion. It's a place where evil will thrive. So he very cleverly he invited them to a gambling match. And we know how Shakuni, his maternal uncle, his mama, manipulated. It was a gambling match which was rigged from the very beginning. And because of that, Duryodhan got to take possession of not only the kingdom, but also of Draupadi herself, who was very insultingly disrobed in front of, or attempted to be disrobed in front of all the kings. But again, Krishna's divine intervention, he did not allow that to happen. Because Draupadi, as a pure devotee, she surrendered to Krishna completely. And whenever someone surrenders to Krishna, Krishna protects for sure. So this is on one side, there's this devious plan of Duryodhana. And on the other side, these are these Pandavas who are losing everything one after another. So, this was something that could not be, it could not be, the course of this match could not be changed. And it led to the Pandavas being exiled for 13 years and thereafter 1 year incognito. And being dharmic, they accepted that. So they thought we'll go to this exile as has been the, turn of fate for us. And when we come back, we'll claim the throne. But that was not Duryodhana's plan. He was, his intention was that once they are out, I'll grab power, I'll consolidate power, and I'll never let them enter again. And that's exactly what happened. So what happens when you put somebody in a position of leadership who's unqualified, who, we have not, what did we see in the beginning of Upadeshamrit? Who has the right to lead? One who is self-restrained. Not anyone, just by popular consensus. It should be by qualities and character, not by popularity or by manipulation like this. So once, if there is such a Raja, then everything will be chaotic. In fact, there are some perspectives also say that Duryodhana's administration was good. It was not that he was not efficient. But the main point is he was against the law of the the law of Lord, like Hiranyakashipu, like Ravana. They all had great ability and great power, but what were they doing? They were using it against the will of the law, like a separatist. They are trying to go against the will of the Lord, against the law or order established by the Lord. So that is not tolerated. Dharma is Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Lord personally establishes dharma. And if you go against the dharma, you are going against the Lord. And anyone going against the Lord will not be tolerated. Lord will come to remove them, displace them. Okay. So here then, when they returned from their exile, they respectfully requested their king that please, now we are back as per the conditions of the match, gambling match. We completed our exile and now please give us our kingdom back. Why were they asking? Were they hungry for power and land? Definitely not. That's why they are of a different mentality. They are of a Daivi vritti. They are of a godly mentality. They were just requesting the kingdom because by nature they were Kshatriyas. Yeah, they were duty bound as princes to serve in public administration. You're born, you're trained, you have the qualities of royalty and administration. That's the only reason they wanted the kingdom, because that's what their Swabhava is. And they also reduced their request. Okay, looks like he's greedy. Fine, at least let us channelize our Swabhava. Give us 5 villages. You keep the rest of the kingdom. So we can clearly see they were not having the same, greed like Duryodhana had. They were just, wanting fair engagement. That's all they were looking for. And what did Duryodhana say? I'll not give you even a piece of land through which you can pass a pin of a needle. So that is the extreme, Basically, it's ego. It's Ishwari Bhava. I am supreme. I cannot tolerate anyone having any power other than me. And I think it was also Duryodhana's insecurity that if they were allowed to rule, their rule would be so dharmic, so divine and progressive that everyone would want to go to their kingdom. So he did not want any competition. He said, my monopoly should continue. So, till now Pandavas had been very tolerating and forbearing. But now, because, it's going beyond any reasonable, uh, means, there's a difference between tolerance and injustice. To the extent that Sri Krishna, as a messenger for the Pandavas, he personally went to the court of Dhritarashtra. Yeah, as a peace messenger, Shanti Dut. And forget all this rivalry. We are all of the same dynasty. Let's negotiate peace. But his peace proposal was also refused. Now, what happened now? War was inevitable. As they say, there is this, even in Sikhism, there is this beautiful saying by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, that when all other means of conciliation, of peacemaking, and all other means of conciliation have failed, it is but lawful to take the sword. So then that yuddha becomes a dharma yuddha. If you have tried everything else and still, the injustice is still prevailing. So war is, we are discussing Mahabharat, we are going to discuss Bhagavad Gita, where Arjun has the swabhava of a Kshatriya and Sri Krishna is instigating him, almost instigating him to fight. But we should understand in what spirit is Sri Krishna asking him to fight when all other attempts of conciliation have failed. So war is not the first choice of the righteous people. For the Daivi, those who have Daivi Vritti, for them, war is not the first choice, but it may become the last obligation of dharma. Yeah, and we have seen this that, if you just resort to peace, which Arjun will try to, peace without justice is only silence of the oppressed. So Sri Krishna said, no, that would be injustice. And you as a Kshatriya have to establish justice. I have to establish dharma. So we are not going to tolerate this injustice. So this is the background of what led up to the war. If somebody asks you why did they fight? So there is an entire premise to it. It is not that, like the warmongering leaders of today. Without any reason, let's go to war. No, war should be avoided as much as possible, but when no other means is remaining, then it becomes a dharma yuddha. So Pandavas were men of the highest moral stature. They were dharmic. They recognized Sri Krishna to be Bhagwan, whereas Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, and all the sons of Dhritarashtra, they did not recognize Krishna to be Bhagwan. So they were atheistic. So, again, on the celestial level, this is the war between devas who accept the authority of God and Danavas who do not, who reject the authority of God. So basically, it's that. Do you accept a higher authority? If yes, then you are a deva. If no, you are a asura. And these perspectives will always conflict, theism and atheism. So, and Krishna, because he is God himself, he would not personally fight. So he offered himself that, either you can have my army or you can have me. And I can advise you, I can help you, but I'll not personally fight. That was his resolve. Because, if Krishna fights, then the other party will claim foul that, oh, you have Bhagwan on your side. Although they don't accept him as Bhagwan, but still when they start losing, they'll say, no, you had Krishna. So Sri Krishna said, I'll not participate in the war. I'll only advise. So you can choose. And as we know, what did Duryodhana choose? He was this manipulative political genius. He immediately snatched Krishna's Akshani Senas. He snatched power. And the devotional Arjun, he chose the divine. He chose the powerful, the source of power. So there's always this difference. What is apparently good and what is ultimately good. Duryodhan, with his short-sightedness, thought the armies of Krishna were the apparent good. But Arjun, because of his devotional insight, he saw that having Krishna with us is going to be ultimately good. So in this way, Sri Krishna became the charioteer of Arjun, taking upon himself to drive the fabled Bowman's chariot. So Arjun himself was, he was a legend of his times as a bowman. So he was the best archer. And Sri Krishna was going to drive his chariot, so it became like Sone pe Suhaga. So this is the point where Bhagavad Gita begins. That the two armies are ready, they have arrived, they are arranged, and now they are ready for combat. So the idea is we are studying, this is, the context we discussed so far is the storyline of Mahabharat. Now, when we study the Gita, what happens a lot of the times is that the translators, many a times, they brush aside the person Krishna to make room for their own concepts and philosophies. They want to present some idea that they have, and they use Bhagavad Gita as a vehicle. To the extent they also, brush Krishna aside. And they say, they don't believe in Mahabharat. They don't believe in Sri Krishna. They say Mahabharat is just mythology. And Krishna is just a poetic device. So that's outrightly atheistic. That's outrightly offensive. You can write your own novel, nobody's stopping you. But no, they want to comment on a religious book, yeah, and dismiss God. Why? They reduce Krishna to a poetic device because they want to present their own ideas. They are, prove their genius. So they reduce Krishna to a poetic device, or at best, even if they accept Krishna, they say, okay, Krishna is a historical personality, one among the great kings. He's not one of the kings. He is Bhagwan. So Krishna is both the goal of Bhagavad Gita and he's also the sum and substance of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita and Sri Krishna are not different. So if anyone is presenting Bhagavad Gita to you with presenting Sri Krishna to you, it's outright fraud. So The translation and commentary should lead the reader towards Krishna, not away from Krishna. Yeah, only then will the study of the Bhagavad Gita will become consistent and comprehensive. Why do so many people say, why is Bhagavad Gita so difficult? Because somebody is trying to misinterpret it. If we present it as Sri Krishna's words as leading to Sri Krishna, it is very coherent and comprehensive. But if you try to present something which it is not saying, then you confuse people. Therefore, people are not able to go beyond maybe the first two chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because those translations and commentaries which do not accept, adore, and present Sri Krishna as the goal, they are attempting to do something which is not the message of the Gita. So it ends up being incoherent, confusing, and it doesn't lead to any benefit. So Bhagavad Gita as it is presents this great scripture in its true terms. So initially, Prabhupada, when Bhagavad Gita was published, when Prabhupada was still building up this movement, ISKCON, it was not this full manuscript. Macmillan Company published it, but it was a very short version of Prabhupada's original manuscript. So Prabhupada says in his preface that, his style of presentation is that present the Sanskrit shloka, present the English transliteration, present word by word synonyms, then translation, and then the purport. What does this do? This makes it very authentic, scholarly. Why? Because now you can see the synonyms. Now the meaning is self-evident. You cannot cheat people. You cannot spin, you cannot give it a spin because the words are there. So if somebody is trying to give a spin in the translation, the synonyms will defeat that purpose for an intelligent reader. So Prabhupada says, the current attempt, the Bhagavad Gita that we have, this is the original manuscript with full parampara explanation. As we have discussed before, tradition and modern academic education have different approaches. In tradition, we present the message as we are receiving it. We are not, here to research or change the meaning. The entire effort is conserving the message coming from acharyas and ultimately from Sri Krishna because that is Shabda. So if you add your own interpretation, we are adulterating the Shabda Brahma. There is no need, so it is the Parampara explanation. And Srila Prabhupada said, this will establish our movement more soundly and progressively. So, books have been the basis of our society, not just their distribution, but also their study. So, Prabhupada is writing in the preface, our Krishna consciousness movement is genuine, historically authorized, natural, and transcendental due to its being based on the Bhagavad Gita. When we study the Bhagavad Gita and then you see how Prabhupada has designed our activities in the Krishna consciousness movement, you realize it's entirely using Bhagavad Gita as a framework. The entire design is coming from Bhagavad Gita. So if somebody had to design a lifestyle based on the Bhagavad Gita, how would it look? It would look like ISKCON as it functions today. So it is not a society that was created around the vision of pioneer or a reformist or a revolutionary. No, this is created, the entire society is created on the tenets of the Bhagavad Gita directly. And Prabhupada is writing in his time, this preface was written in 1971. He says the society is gaining popularity both among the youth and among the older generation. Why? Because they see that This is leading to transformation. The parents are coming and congratulating Prabhupada for bringing this to the West, bringing the teachings of Sri Krishna to the Western world, because it is creating a positive reformation in their children. So, the proof of wisdom is transformation. So, if transformation is happening, that means the message is potent. So, Prabhupada says it's not my credit. The original father of this movement is Lord Krishna himself. Hmm. And this has been brought down to human society in parampara. If I have any credit in this connection, it doesn't belong to me personally, but it is due to my eternal spiritual master. His divine grace, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtotarashat Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. Because Saraswati Thakur instructed Prabhupada the first time he saw him, even when they did not know each other. You are an educated young man. Why don't you take the message of the Gita to the Western world? That's it. That one instruction became the mission of Srila Prabhupada's life. No, Prabhupada kept that instruction within his heart and attempted, he kept endeavoring to give shape to that instruction of his guru. So Prabhupada is saying, if I have any credit, my only credit is that I have not adulterated it. Yeah. It is presented as it is, as Krishna wanted it to be. Prabhupada says, before my presentation of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, almost all editions of Bhagavad Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambition. A politician commenting on the Bhagavad Gita or a reformer. So they all had a personal ambition which they tried to fulfill. That is the message they imposed on the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. But our attempt in presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What does Krishna want to say? That's what Prabhupada is presenting. Our business is to present the will of Krishna, not that of a mundane speculator, a philosopher, scientist, or politician. See, they are great people, but this is not their domain. If somebody is an expert pilot, will you allow them to perform a surgery on your friend? That's not their domain. They should not enter there. They should be in politics, science, and philosophy. That doesn't qualify them to comment on the Bhagavad Gita. They have no understanding of Sri Krishna, despite all their other knowledge. So, we should know in which field are we looking for what qualification. So, if a scientist writes a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, that should not immediately impress us. We should know what qualifies them to write a commentary on this. Sri Krishna says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto man yaji mam namaskuru. It's so difficult for somebody who doesn't understand and accept Krishna to translate this. Krishna is saying, Become my devotee, surrender unto me, offer worship to me. How do you translate this? Yeah, this is so difficult. So, to interpret a scripture doesn't require intelligence, it requires sadhana. Yeah, and it requires purification, it requires grace of the Lord, and it requires blessings of your Guru. Then you can communicate this message. It is not just somebody who can understand language and logic and start commenting on any scripture. It is Tattvadarshina. This is a very different benchmark to study scripture. Those who have realized the truth, only they are qualified to share the truth. Not somebody who is eloquent or charismatic. That's not the qualification. So how does a intellectual translate this who is not a devotee, who doesn't even accept Krishna, surrender to Krishna? They'll say, it is not the person Krishna. It is the principal Krishna that is being presented here. So, where do these ideas come from? Surrender to the principal Krishna within your heart. There is no principal Krishna. There is a person Krishna who is instructing Arjun to surrender unto him. If you want to understand the real message of the Gita, you have to put yourself in Arjun's position. To whom Bhagwan is speaking personally, not principle or abstract law is not speaking. Bhagwan is speaking. So the first error that a novice does is mistake that Krishna and his spirit are different. Prabhupada says this is an error. Everything about Krishna is absolute. There is no difference between Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes, and Krishna himself. So anyone who tries to, create this is called, they take this freedom to interpret. This is not allowed in tradition. Only when the direct meaning is not clear can we resort to other means of, understanding. So allegory. Allegory is not, the first resort. When you want to present a spiritual idea to a secular audience, sometimes you use an allegory. Oh, Kurukshetra was not a real field, it represents our body. The Pandavas represent the five senses. Who told you? Sri Krishna told you. So, reducing something that's historical, factual, transcendental to allegorical, this is also a mistake. And a lot of times it is done intentionally. Or if they are so ignorant, then they should not approach the subject matter to interpret it. So this absolute nature of Krishna to understand, how can Krishna and Krishna's soul be same? How can Krishna and Krishna's name be one and the same? This is very difficult. This is achintya for an ordinary person. It's inconceivable. Because how are they understanding? They are understanding from their sense perception as their interpretation, which is again based on sense perception. So those who are approaching a scripture based on sense perception, they'll never understand its meaning. We accept Shabda Praman. So we understand what is Achintya Shakti. Krishna can have this Achintya nature. So generally, the so-called scholars, politicians, philosophers, and swamis, without the perfect knowledge of Krishna, understanding Krishna is a science. Krishna Tattva, to understand Krishna Tattva, Acharyas have written volumes pouring through the scriptures and using logic. So, to understand Krishna, there is an entire Sandarbha, an entire volume Srila Jiva Goswami has dedicated to understanding Krishna. It's not very simple. Krishna Sandarbha. So the idea is that people who do not understand Krishna, when they try to interpret the message of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, they will try to banish Krishna or kill Krishna. Such unauthorized commentary upon the Bhagavad Gita is known as Mayavada Bhashya. Mayavad means to not accept the personality of the Lord, to remove Krishna from the picture and then interpret his message. This is how the Asuras try to attack Krishna. It's the same. They did it with weapons, and these philosophers are doing it with logic, with language. But the intent and the mindset is the same. So Lord Chaitanya clearly says anyone who tries to understand Bhagavad Gita from the Mayavadi point of view will commit a great blunder. Because the entire Gita is a theistic science. Theistic science means it's centered around Sri Krishna being Bhagwan. Now, if you use a theistic science to prove a non-theistic conclusion, that's going to lead to a big blunder. So, other Upanishads have both kind of statement, Bheda Shruti and Abheda Shruti. So there you can do a selective reading and present non-difference. But Bhagavad Gita, it's very difficult to present non-difference, that Jiva and Ishwar are the same. That monism is very difficult to bring out using the Bhagavad Gita because Sri Krishna is directly personally presenting his divinity. So it takes a lot of effort to deconstruct that. So you understand why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, because if you approach a theistic science with a non-theistic lens, it's going to lead to a blunder. It will never lead to the right understanding. You will only get confused. Your devotional attitude will only get suffocated. So the only purpose is to present Bhagavad Gita as it is to guide us. We are conditioned souls and stuck in this samsara. Only way out is through the interventions of the saints, the avatars, and shastras. If we take these away, then samsara becomes like a permanent, you know, black hole where we are locked in and can never come out of. But that's not the case. Yeah, so we see here Srila Prabhupada is saying the purpose is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Why is Sri Krishna presenting Bhagavad Gita? That purpose is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, and we have to accept that and understand the Bhagavad Gita and its speaker, Sri Krishna. So when Sri Krishna says, I spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Sun God. So when as somebody who doesn't accept Sri Krishna, they'll again, they'll get fused, they'll get short circuited. Then they'll try to interpret that. What does it mean that Sri Krishna spoke to Sun God? Then they'll give some allegory, some interpretation. So point is, Krishna spoke to Sun God because he pre-exists everyone, because he is Bhagwan. So if you accept Sri Krishna as Bhagwan, Bhagavad Gita is very easy to understand. If you don't accept Krishna as Bhagwan, then you'll have to keep twisting the meaning round and round. And then it becomes a very difficult enterprise, undertaking. Okay, so we have to accept this fact and understand the historical significance of the Bhagavad Gita without misinterpretation. How should we accept the Bhagavad Gita? On the authority of Krishna. If Krishna says, I spoke to the sun god, you don't accept that. Why are you accepting the rest of the Gita? Because that is also his message, right? So it's, it doesn't add up. That is selective, it's manipulative reading. That I don't accept Krishna as God, I don't accept that he spoke to sun god, but still I'll continue to comment on the rest of his message. If you're not accepting Krishna as Bhagavan, please leave. To interpret Bhagavad Gita without any reference to the will of Krishna is the greatest offense. So, first, we should understand who Krishna is, his divinity. We should understand what is the will of Sri Krishna in presenting this message. Then we should try to understand and study and teach. So, we should understand the Lord as he was directly understood by Arjun, Lord's first disciple. Such an understanding of the Bhagavad Gita is profitable and authorized for the welfare of entire humanity. Okay. So, Prabhupada very systematically establishes what should be the approach. And it is not being sectarian, it is being very factual. This is a text presented on the authority of Sri Krishna. So, if you're not accepting Sri Krishna as an authority, you cannot accept the rest of the book. That's all he's saying. He's not saying because I worship Krishna, Krishna is the supreme. He's saying use consistency. The Krishna consciousness movement is essential in human society for it offers the highest perfection of life. So we'll, through the study of the Bhagavad Gita, we'll understand how we who are, here in this world going about our lives, we need direction. We need a goal. That is given by the Bhagavad Gita, a compass to life. But mundane wranglers means those who don't have a spiritual transcendental understanding, they're just intellectualists. They take the advantage of the Bhagavad Gita to push forward their demoniac propensities and mislead people regarding right understanding of the simple principles of life. Does it remind you of any mantra of the Ishopanishad?
Yes, the people
So-called
Vidya
Vidya,
Rataha.
so-called Vidya is more dangerous than avidya because it is giving a justification for avidya by concocted ideologies and philosophies. So everyone should know God or Krishna. Everyone should know that God is great, Krishna is great. So everyone should understand what is Krishna Tattva. Everyone should know what is the factual position of the living entities. Everyone should know the Jiva Tattva. That's all. This is a science about Jiva Tattva, Ishwar Tattva, and their eternal relationship, which is called Bhakti. That's all. So we'll discuss in the course of our study. Bhagavad Gita talks about 5 elements: Ishwar, Jeev, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. These are the topics of the Bhagavad Gita. So the idea is Bhagavad Gita is presented by the Lord out of compassion for the ultimate spiritual welfare of humanity, that let everyone get a right progressive path. What should I do next? How should I improve my life spiritually? But if the atheistic or impersonal interpreters, they come in with an idea of profiteering, making Bhagavad Gita an enterprise, that is not the same mode as Sri Krishna's. Therefore, it'll never come to the right understanding and it will never lead to any transformation. They'll keep discussing, they'll keep debating intellectually, but nobody will be transformed. It has to come from a mode of compassion. Everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion. Jivera Swarupai Krishnera Nityada. That's all Bhagavad Gita is trying to present. If you don't serve Krishna, you will serve Maya through the gunas. And through the 3 gunas, Prakriti creates so many interesting varieties of material objects. So either you will get engrossed in those, or you can choose to love and serve Krishna. Even the so-called, even the so-called liberated Mayavadi speculator has to undergo this process of being stuck in samsara because they don't acknowledge Bhagwan. So this knowledge constitutes a great science. Therefore, it's called Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana. It's a Vijnana. It's not just as people say, oh, this is belief system. It's not a belief system. We have never studied the Bhagavad Gita. It is a science. What is a science? How is science different from a belief? Science is a method. Irrespective of who does it, the method works. So similarly, Krishna consciousness, Bhagavad Gita is a science. It sets forth the method. If you follow these steps, this is the result that you get. Belief is, I believe that this will happen. I believe that this is so. So in belief, you cannot verify by outcome. But in science, you can verify by an outcome. So therefore, Bhagavad Gita is said to be a science. And every living being has to hear it for their own interest. Everyone is what is everyone doing in this world? Everyone is selfish. At the core, we might have social responsibilities and etiquette and morality, but at the core, all of us are selfish. What are we pursuing? We are pursuing our swarth. Because it serves us, therefore we are respectful to others. Because it serves us, we are living morally, ethically. The day those they stop serving our interests, we'll stop following them. Like Kamsa, a beautiful example. He was such a loving brother to Devaki that he was driving her chariot after her marriage with Vasudeva. But all this love only till the time of the Akashvani. That the eighth child of your sister is going to be the cause of your death. And then everything changed. His swarth changed, therefore his mood changed. Now he wanted to kill the same Devaki who he was escorting. So who are we really serving? If you ask this question deeply, it can disturb you. We are actually loving and serving only ourselves. But what is Prahlad Maharaj saying? We don't even know what is our real swarth. Nate vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu. Our best self-interest is to understand Vishnu and serve Vishnu. Everything else is fragile and temporary. So if you are really wanting to be selfish, first try to understand the self. Once you understand the spiritual self, then you can be as selfish as you like. That is a good selfish. So Prabhupada is saying we should hear it for our own interest. But you know what, in Kali Yuga, manda sumanda bhagyo, manda bhagya hi upadrita. People in Kali Yuga, all of us, including we are not different. We are we don't have that sharpness of intelligence. We don't have the memory. We don't even have interest in spiritual topics. We are dull and we are short-lived. So we are too enamored by Prakriti. Yeah, we are too enamored by the different temptations offered by the glittering Maya. But if we choose to, pursue the interests from Maya, we will be subject to the stringent laws of nature. The laws of nature are very strict. You have a certain desire, you will get a corresponding deha. Once you get a certain deha, you have to act according to the limitations of that deha. So you are bound in one sense. You become a puppet in the hands of Prakriti. That's one choice. So people think we can become happy by gratifying our senses. That is the problem. Nate vidu swartagati. They have not realized that this is fickle. This is temporary. This is not even me. So even a lifetime of pursuit leaves us completely dissatisfied and disillusioned. So as a part and parcel of the Lord, our natural function is to serve the Lord. I am a part of Krishna. My happiness lies in serving the whole. This simple truth, if we can understand. Yeah. So, we discussed in Ishopanishad also that if we are in a disease state, whatever you do, you cannot be happy. First, you have to get out of the disease state. Yeah. And then in that normal state, then you can, relish something. In a disease state, if you try to indulge, that's only going to increase your disease. So, what is our disease? We discussed the Ishwari Bhava, the desire to exploit, control, which is the right of the Ishwar. So, that mindset has to be cured, that I can find happiness in being an Ishwar. That has to be corrected to the understanding that I can find happiness only in service. And if I have to serve, who is the best object of my service? And when you study that, you come to the conclusion by studying the Bhagavad Gita, by understanding Krishna's energies, Krishna's vibhutis, Krishna's, mystic opulences, Krishna's universal form, Krishna's love for his devotees. Then you come to the conclusion that yes, Krishna is the most worthy object of my service and surrender. That's all we are trying to do. First, you want to exploit or you want to serve? Second, if I have to serve, who should I serve? These two questions are the only existential questions that need to be addressed. Everything else will fall in place. So the Lord wants this and He demands this for our own good, that you align to my will. So, what leads to happiness? What gives happiness? Not possessions, but situation. People are feverishly trying to, you know, collect and increase their possessions and influence. But if we understand that happiness comes not from this, but from situation. What do we mean by situation? How do you situate yourself? Like If a country is under a war, oppression, terrorism, if you just move to another country where there is justice and peace, that is situation. So we have to just situate ourselves in relation to God. That's all. Situation brings happiness, not possessions. One has to understand this central point of the Bhagavad Gita, that our happiness is in serving and loving Krishna. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching the whole world this central point, and because we are not polluting the theme of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for the practical understanding of the Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. So Prabhupada, is clearly, mapping it out. How should we understand the Bhagavad Gita? What is the society created for? And if you apply yourself to the process, you will experience the change. And then Prabhupada humbly concludes and signs off. He says, we hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And we know, it has changed the lives of millions of people thereafter, after Prabhupada presented it. This entire worldwide movement which has set up. Anyone who comes in touch, takes it up sincerely, gets transformed. So how did Prabhupada establish this? Because he kept himself aligned to the mission of Sri Krishna. He kept himself aligned purely to the will of the Lord. He did not have any personal agenda. He was just representing the parampara. And Prabhupada says that, and even if one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. So, it's not one, but thousands and millions who are on the path to pure devotion by studying Srila Prabhupada's purpose. So, this is the context and the setting of the Bhagavad Gita and the intention of Srila Prabhupada in presenting his message and his commentary in line with the Acharyas. So, once we understand this, then the rest of the study can, be in this lens. It becomes more aligned. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Hare Krishna.